The following video is available in audio-only format on the free Red Pill Philosophy smartphone app. If you're about to hit the gym or go for a walk or on your way to work, just pop in your headphones and take this video on the go with you. To download the free app, just click the link below. Alright, what's up everybody? Thanks a lot for tuning in to Red Pill Philosophy. Today I am joined by a special guest here. Can I call him a diehard flat earther? Maybe not the best description, but he's a dude who says he's questioned everything. We're all raised in the mainstream school system to believe the mainstream cosmology, that we live on a ball and it spins. We're not the center of the universe, and that's what we're told from a very early age. But our guest here tonight says that he did something. Yes, exactly. Our guest here tonight says he did something that most people do not do, and that is he questioned what he was being taught. He didn't just accept it for what it was. And interestingly enough, after questioning the globe model, he believes there's much more evidence that the earth is flat than there is that it's spinning, or rather that it's a ball. So again, it's an interesting topic. People think that I'm a flat earther, and I'm not. And I'm sure there's probably some diehard flat earthers who think I'm just a lukewarm, moderate coward who doesn't just come out and say what he is because he's trying to avoid, getting, criticism. But the truth is, I don't know if the earth is flat, and guess what? I hate to say it, I don't know if it's fucking round or a globe. I believe the earth was a globe with zero evidence my whole life. Zero evidence, guys. So, so the truth is, that's not very scientific. To just believe something because your first grade teacher told you is just very unscientific. And I was engaging in an unscientific practice my whole life by believing something without actually investigating it and understanding the scientific reason for it. So again, it's not about being pro-flat earth. It's about how do you know it's a globe? People say, oh, you're a flat earther. No, it's about actually exercising true skepticism. Some people see this shirt that I'm wearing and they think it's a pro-flat earth shirt, when in no way is it. It's just a pro-skepticism t-shirt. How do you know it's a globe? It's a simple question. Do you believe it's a globe based on blind faith on what other people tell you, or can you actually come to the conclusion scientifically? Again, I'll put a link to this one in the description below so you can get this shirt for yourself. So people think, oh, you're a flat earther, or you're actually questioning, or you're doing informal flat earth experiments. You must be crazy. That's anti-science. No, I'm actually finally exercising the scientific method when it comes to the globe model for the first time in my life. So no, I don't think the earth is flat, but I can't necessarily prove that it's round. And I like to entertain things, like Aristotle said, I like to entertain things that might sound outlandish, but it's the mark of an educated mind, like Aristotle said, to entertain an idea without accepting it. So that's what we're going to do here today. And I don't know, is there any opening words, anything that you'd like to start this off with?
Sure. I suppose for the purposes of your audience, I'll give a little bit of my background and intro. I'm a teacher by trade, and I teach music, and but my interests and exploits, are pretty broad. I'm heavily involved in music, and also I do comedy and law and sports and family and church and economics, electronics, video games, martial arts, lecturing and debating and that kind of stuff, which I do frequently enough. I have a handful of degrees. I have an associate's in mathematics and music, and then I went on and got a bachelor's in music, followed by a master's in music, and then a teacher's credential, and completed coursework with the Berean School of the Bible for certified pastorship, although I'm not a pastor, but I just did the work. And I would just like to get across that for your audience. I'm no rookie. You have to do all of this stuff when you're getting any degrees, even though today in state colleges, it's kind of a thing of the past to expect that anyone knows, has even the slightest idea on how to cite sources, do research, actual research and stuff. But yes, I've been in school for much longer than I care to remember, and I decided to put it to work, and I found that when I took all of those 20 years of my life that I was indoctrinated in public education and actually decided to use it, now people are much more upset with me. And it's fascinating. So,
right. So basically what you're saying is that you've been through the system. You've been through the quote formal training, formal education. So it's not like you're just some quack job who just, crawled out of his basement and said the earth is flat.
Got it. Yeah, I didn't see something shiny on a YouTube video and take it to the end. I look into stuff. In fact, ever since I was a kid, I would always get kind of a thrill out of getting to the bottom of stuff. And so I know all about discernment and how to verify information, both casually and at the academic level. And I really get into the nitty gritty guts of stuff. Like I'm one of those, I don't know if you've seen him, but I'm one of those guys who's thrown judges out of courtrooms, and done that kind of stuff because I found out what was really happening underneath everything. And when you find it out, the whole system falls apart. And I don't do things that are so grand all the time. Like I'm that one weird relative, like at Thanksgiving, we were watching, I don't know, Lethal Weapon 3 or something, and just on the TV, and someone asked, can a cop really commandeer your vehicle? If they're in an emergency, can they say that, under state authority, I'd take your car? And we're all thinking about it, and while they're talking about it, I'm on the phone with the cops, and they're like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm calling the cops. I'm going to find out. I'm going to find out. I'm the weirdo that takes the just because I love to do it. I love to come back to people and say, bam, solution. Use as much as we could find. And I think that's probably why I had such a deep, reverent appreciation for mathematics, because mathematics is the ultimate visual representation of logic. It's breaking down everything where there's no more contingencies left, no more argument. You get to the bottom of shit. That's what math is for. So, I do all the same things in my classrooms. When I teach, the students find out pretty quickly that Spencer is the guy that gets to the bottom of shit. And you pick and choose your battles, of course, but it's important to me. I really enjoy doing that.
Yeah.
So, I suppose on that same note, I could talk about, I have a website going up. You're actually the first person to know about it. It's called the challengetheflatearth.com, and it's $1,000 cash challenge, $1,000 to the first person who can prove to me scientifically that the earth has a curve. Very similar, if you're familiar to James Randi's challenge, for psychics, whoever can prove they're a psychic. I think now it's $1 million, but anyway, it's never been done. So I was just kind of curious. I'm going to throw up a billboard here in my town. Tell everyone in the world who's riding by, the earth's flat. If you can prove it, make it easy grand.
So that's interesting. So you don't think, so in your research, in your investigation, I mean, first of all, for the majority of your life, you thought the earth was a globe?
Yes. In fact, I was auditioned indoctrinated soldier for the state. In fact, I'm still sort of kind of in it, unfortunately, as a teacher. But I grew up just like everyone else. If I would have heard someone was a flat earth thinker, I would have ridiculed them just like they do to me.
Yeah.
And, for the first, 34, 35 years of my life, I was a vicious atheist. Like I was brutal to people. And it seems a little obscure, but the connection between, I guess I would say, our existence and our purpose and our salvation and the terrain that we're literally standing on is much more connected than a lot of people want. We'll get to that.
Yeah, no, and I like to just flow into things as they feel right. So, we might, and for some people it might seem like this is a disjointed conversation, but I'm just going to go into it. I absolutely go ahead.
I say it gets very complex.
It does. And what you were just saying just sparked a sudden inspiration in me. I absolutely agree with you. That there is a very fundamental connection between the literal foundation we stand on as physical beings and how that extrapolates into how we perceive ourselves and the world, even purpose and meaning and all these even seemingly spiritual type concepts. And if there's one thing I can say about the quote globe model or the heliocentric model, that's kind of a depressing model. It does go hand in hand with atheism when you think about it, because I do believe that atheism, a lot of times, it's a religion of depression. It's a religion of nihilism. Atheism, and I actually have a video, I haven't made it public yet, but it's called Atheist Physicalists Can't Be Happy on a Flat Earth. And sometimes, people, the atheist slash physicalist types will always say that, no, the reason I believe the world is such a miserable, empty void of coincidental, meaningless matter just bouncing around for no reason, the reason I think that is not because I am a nihilist at my core, and I'm just bitter towards the world because bad things happen to me, so there's no way there could be a God, so fuck God and fuck everything. It's an evil, cruel world, and I'm gonna twist and turn it into my fucking religion called atheist physicalism. No. It's not because of an internal bias in my personality. It's because I believe in science. I'm fact-based. I came to this conclusion because of evidence and reason and facts. And if it turns out that by some crazy conspiracy, that's what you want to call it, we've been lied to about the very structure of the world we live in, a globe heliocentric universe goes hand in hand with a pessimistic, nihilistic, atheistic, physicalist worldview, as opposed to the flat earth, which is a totally different world. If we do live on a flat earth, that is stationary and is even the center of the universe, which sounds just so crazy if you've been believing what you were taught since you were a young kid in mainstream schooling. This center of the universe, flat stationary earth world view is so different. You can't help but believe there might be a God, a creator. You can't help but believe that you're special, that we're the center of the universe. And I don't want to take the spotlight from you, because I can go down this rabbit hole of what are the implications of believing or actually existing on a flat earth in terms of our lives and how we act and behave and perceive the world. The implications are shocking, and I don't want to take it from you, so I'll stop there and maybe we'll get into it later. But I just had to get that out.
Yeah, well, I was going to sort of bring this up later on, but since it's kind of relevant now, I put down a question: what's the big secret? Why the big swindle? And it's a lot like you mentioned. It's going to sound a little obscure. It kind of takes a while to connect the dots here, but ultimately I'll start with the beginning, and that is it's an attempt to hide God from us, which I know sounds a little off, but we are in fact not a speck of dust out in the middle of nowhere. We are central and supreme focus of existence. Not only the earth, but particularly humans. We are. The problem is that, like you mentioned with the atheist, nihilistic viewpoint, is it removes the responsibility of your actions and your thoughts while you're here, while your time is here on the earth. And the problem with having humans be the supreme and central focus is now you are literally responsible for every single thought and action that you have, which is uncomfortable. I'm not too particularly thrilled about saying it either. I wasn't happy to find this out myself, but that's the unfortunate truth, at least based on the evidence that we're going to show here today, hopefully. Another big point, which is kind of secondary, but if you want to talk about NASA, which we definitely will, because they're considered the foremost authority on what the hell's going out there in space.
Yeah.
An enormous, oh my God. I haven't put the numbers together yet, but I'm pretty sure it's the largest money laundering scheme ever in human history. So there's a big issue when it comes to money and to power. Why the big conspiracy and cover up?
That's what Eddie Bravo, I've heard him say before. He talks a lot about tax scams.
About what?
Eddie Bravo talks a lot about tax scams and how he thinks a lot of quote government programs, it's all basically just a big fucking tax scam. Oh yeah.
When it comes to government, for sure. But even if the government wasn't part of this picture and there was still this issue of the round earth, if you want to go all the way to the end, you would just say Satan. It's a big deception. But
yeah,
let's get to that later.
Totally. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go to the Satan route. Let's go. Let's go all the way down, bro. You know me by now. I'll cover any fucking topic. Okay. Well, here's one thing. You pointed out how we actually, according to the way you're inclined to view the world now, flat, center of the universe, that we do matter, that we're not a speck of dust. And a lot of times I've heard the atheist physicalists, they'll come in and they'll say, you see, that's the reason you believe the earth is flat, because you just feel scared in the void of the universe and you want to believe that you're loved. What is your refutation to that common argument I hear people say towards flat earthers?
Would they say it because I'm scared? Well, if you want to talk about when I felt afraid, it was most certainly the first 35 years of my life. There were times where I was put on the couch. I was absolutely terrified of death. And I think everyone probably has the same sort of sentiment, maybe to a lesser degree. But if you break down kind of like the motivation behind every action that we would call bad, it's ultimately a fear of death in some fashion.
Sure.
Now, I don't know if I'm getting this exactly, but when you finally realize what you're standing on and how vital and how important and how monitored your thoughts and your actions are, and then you realize that some other dude's running the joint, there's a sense of peace and a sense of purpose that you get that I can't really describe without taking a lot of time.
But the common atheist thing would probably be to say, like, you didn't come to the conclusion based on reason or evidence. You came to it because you wanted to ameliorate. You wanted to get rid of the sort of existential fear. Would you say you came to it on the basis of evidence? Are you convinced that it was an evidence-based conclusion?
Oh yeah. No, it was quite the contrary, that I was not pleased to get this information. I was not really happy to run down these dots, because you got to throw out all of the lies and the deception that we had to deal with.
Isn't it a little scary too? Like I've had moments where I'm like, holy fucking shit! If the Earth is flat, this is absolutely terrifying.
It's a whole new game. It's a whole new fucked up game. And in fact, I'd like to get to that later too.
No, yeah. Let me just say that, like, since like Aristotle said, I like, the mark of an educated mind is to entertain ideas without accepting them. So I have entertained the flat Earth idea, and when I've really sat down, I'm like, fuck, if they lied and the Earth is actually flat, this is scary as shit. So I don't know about you, but I personally find comfort, strangely, I kind of find comfort in the idea that we live in this giant, meaningless universe of balls spinning around, because I guess it takes the burden of reality and existence off my shoulders, which again, we can get into all those subjective things later. But I think for the sake of our audience, we should try to focus on what evidence you think exists that the Earth is flat. I think that's really a good jumping point to go from here. So I guess my question would be, how do you know? Why do you think it's flat? What's your evidence?
Okay, let's start with the scientific method. Most people are familiar that every scientific method has 4 or 5 categories, not always in the same order, but it has to do something with a question / hypothesis, then observations, and then analysis, synthesis, and conclusion. So if you go through all this stuff, you have to keep in mind that the whole scientific method is kind of useless if you don't have these other criteria to kind of, for statistic purposes, make a safe claim. So for example, is it repeatable? And when it repeats, what is the frequency that you get the same results? Is it 100% like mathematics, or is it 98%, or is it 40%? These things matter. And another big issue is a household experiment. If it's not a household experiment, you have a big red flag that you need to take care of, because if it's something where it's done in some government program with the data and results that none of us are allowed to see and none of us are allowed to be a part of, then what the hell is the purpose of the study? So if it's not a household experiment, it's a big hurdle that you have to deal with. And is the data available to everyone? So
you're saying basically be skeptical. Be a skeptic.
Correct.
Don't just
like if someone was
don't just take the word of somebody else. Don't just believe it on blind faith, basically.
Right. And so if someone ever asks you, well, how do you know if such and such is whatever? You say, well, if there was some guy walking around claiming that water boiled at 150 degrees Fahrenheit, a simple household experiment all across the world, at sea level will show that it's wrong, or that the claim is wrong. So, and this is going to be important later on when we're talking about like the high altitude balloon flights and stuff. So if you want to break it all down, ultimately you could put, in principle, the scientific mind is simply getting to the bottom of something. And over the years we've developed methods that get there faster, but that's what we're trying to do. We see something that doesn't add up, you get to the bottom of it, period. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so this is kind of, now we live in this world of science. I've heard this probably even term used by you, science versus scientism. The difference between the guy who regurgitates information and the difference between the annoying guy who takes the extra time to actually get to the bottom of it.
Yeah.
So, and I was a big NASA guy for many, many years. I watched all the specials, and I was a big Star Trek fan, and yada, yada, yada. It is devastating to have that experience ripped away from you, because when, like you mentioned, when you realize what kind of game we're playing now, and if this bitch is flat, then if everything's different, everything's thrown out of the water. Evolution's out of the water, Big Bang's out of the water, and it calls into question all of like the scientific gold standard guys that we had, which turn out to all be 33-degree Masons like Newton, Einstein, all those guys. It's a big mess, So, but if you want to break it down scientifically, all the evidence you look at, you could ask yourself these questions. Is it a household experiment? Can anyone in the world do it? And is the data available to everyone? Pretty much. And then you are getting closer to getting. So if I may, I'll go ahead and show, I guess probably the best way to do this is to kind of go in the order in which I saw everything.
Okay.
My screen here. And now we have, so I was chilling on YouTube back in the day, 2 years ago or so. And, at the time I was watching, like, I don't know, jet flights or something cool, and so just in my recommended popped up these high altitude balloon flights, and I said, well, that's cool. So I popped it in. I'm not going to show you the whole 3-hour one. The whole process takes about 2.5 hours, 3 hours. But if you want to watch it, you can go through these videos, of course, and watch the whole flight, which I did one time. And so here we are. We're up here at 121,000 feet. All the way across, flat line. And I first saw that and I thought to myself, okay, whatever, big deal. It's a nice picture. It looks kind of cool, the Earth from up here. And then I remembered back in the day, I watched a Red Bull jumper, and the number 120,000 feet kind of blew my mind, because I was like, I swear that guy was at 120,000 feet. You can see this right now on my screen, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. So I'll get out of there. Now here's this guy, Felix, whatever. Name I don't really care to remember, and he's up to doing this thing. Now you're probably familiar with fisheye lens and the straight lens, or whatever people call things.
Yep.
For the people who don't know, fisheye lens is put on a lot of cameras because it captures most of the space or most of the view screen that you would see, and it kind of sticks it in a circle, so it looks cool for a lot of like the stuff that you would use GoPro for.
Yeah.
But the fisheye lens definitely distorts the horizon. And now take a look right here. This is inside the capsule. That is very, very straight. And you're like, okay, well, whatever. It only covers this much space, so it might be going down, 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 whatever. Okay. So
hey, real quick, before you press play, could you turn the volume off completely on that video? I don't want to get like some silly copyright for music. All right, you're good.
Yeah. So now it shows the video of that, and you're like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then you look out here, and you're like, damn. Okay, so I was 8,000 feet. Okay. So then I'm thinking to myself, okay, as I sort of always have thought to myself, there's got to be an explanation, we got to get to the bottom of it, which means this is either a fisheye lens or some kind of camera that's distorting the horizon. That's one possibility. Number two, this is legitimate video from NASA or whatever, and all of the dozens and dozens of amateur household experiment balloons going up in the air are showing a flat plane because they've all adapted or manipulated their video, which a lot of people don't realize this. It's easy to adapt and manipulate pictures in Photoshop. Not quite so easy with video. You got to have some know-how to pull that off, make it look right. So anyway, I'm getting beside myself. Or option number three is the Earth is just deciding to change its fucking mind. One day be curved and the next day be straight at 120,000 feet, and we just don't know about it. So anyway, this is kind of what went through my mind.
Not to mention, by the way, that if you're looking at that footage right there, I mean, that's a big fucking continent. It's like taking up the whole fucking planet. Like, what continent is that takes up like roughly 50% of the planet? I didn't see that on the world map.
Yeah, totally doesn't add up. Totally doesn't add up. So, I'm just that annoying guy. I'm the guy who gets on the phone and calls people during parties, whatnot, and figures it out. And I'm just like, I'm going to get to the bottom of this. So, this is a big issue, as I'm sure a lot of people would agree. Let me get, I think we're back. Okay.
Yes, we're back.
So, now a lot of people don't realize this, that out of all human history, we are the first generation in the last maybe 6-7 years that actually had the ability and the technology to just fucking check. You know what I mean? Just all the stuff that we got. We never before have had the technology to just throw up a camera, right? That has all the data, like Google has the analytics that shows the whole flight path, the whole everything, all the, whatever what do they call the meter that checks is the altitude and all that stuff. All that junk we have now at our pretty easy, kind of cheap disposal. And we have never had the ability to instantly broadcast it worldwide seconds later. That's never been available to us before. This is the first time ever in human history that we've had this. So people just decided to, hey, we all know that every one of us for, who knows how many years we're told such and such. We're just going to throw up a video and check. And it's all coming back bullshit, or it's all coming back claiming that what we're being told is bullshit.
So you're talking about the amateur balloons are going up there and they're getting back pretty flat horizons.
Right, or there's a lot of guys who are going out and testing, on flat water, different distances and laser tests and stuff like that. Okay. And there were guys who were doing this back in the day, but then you had to get it broadcasted. You had to get it to the whole world, and this gets all into a big old crazy mess when you're talking about the media, the banking control, and all that stuff, which I will save for another time. So, if you want to, let me find another video here if I can. I'm going to go back to the screen.
Could I ask you real quick, how long did it take you to go through this process from typical globe believer to holy shit, it may very well be flat? Like, how long was that process?
Well, it may surprise you, but I would say maybe about 5 or 6 months.
5 or 6 months, wow.
A couple hundred hours of observation and looking into things and trying to explain away other anomalies, or just apply, just trying to account for all the contingencies that I was seeing. And it wasn't until I started reading the Bible that it sort of shock put me straight into it after just a few days. Because oddly enough, and again, I know this sounds obscure to probably a lot of your audience, but once you start figuring out what that book is claiming the world is and how it got made, it looks almost exactly like what we're seeing up there, and almost exactly like what we're seeing through our other experiments and stuff.
So quick question,
yeah.
Because again, I'm open-minded to anything. I like to exercise my brain. I'm not an intellectual weakling who needs to hide in his little safe space, and then ridicules people who dare step out and question things, like some people. So the whole religion thing throws me off a little bit, because if there's one thing I've always agreed with atheists about, it was that they did kind of effectively, in my opinion, in my probably limited research, I felt like they pretty effectively debunked a lot of religions. Like, even Christians they're atheists towards 99% of all the gods in the world. They just choose to believe in their own, but they don't believe in all the other religions' gods. And like all these interesting logical things that atheists come up with. So I've always had this sort of like, okay, well, atheism never proved God doesn't exist, but I think they did a good job debunking most mainstream religions. So I've always felt like, well, yeah, a God might exist. There might be a God. But I've always been very conclusive in my mind that I'm not going to try to find God in any of the major religions. I just always assumed religions were just a human way to try to explain the mysteries of reality. So the whole flat earth thing has brought you towards Christianity, or do you think that some of the other religions, because I think a lot of ancient cultures also put forward a sort of flat earth cosmology, Is it just Christianity that's right and the Bible's right and they're all wrong? How do you stand on all that, thing about all the many religions and all that?
Well, one way to break it down, there's only three religions in the world that claim to have one ruler, one supreme. All the other religions have more than one. So for the moment, let's stick with the ones that claim that there's only one, because when you get into like all the Eastern religions with that crazy mess, they don't even agree on who's running the show and that kind of stuff. As far, I mean, I took one Buddhism class in college, and that's what I recall, but I'm not sure. But so I can't really speak to all the other polytheistic religions, but there's only three monotheistic religions, and oddly enough, they all three claim the same Old Testament. So they're not even in disagreement. In fact, yeah. So now, the one thing that separates the Bible from all other books that I'm aware of is the Bible is the only book that claims to have the instructions or claims to have the information on how the world was made, and also claims divinity. There's other books that have, claims of how the world was made or what it's going through and stuff, but they don't claim to be divine books. They claim to be books written by dudes who were just thinking shit, who were putting together theoretical stuff or other things that have never been proven or experimented on and whatnot. And again, I'm not going to say that I'm clear with all the other religions, so if that helps at all.
Okay. So this whole flat Earth investigation has basically made you a Christian.
I mean, I grew up in the church, but I was never a believer. I was just always there.
Okay.
So I was pretty familiar with the Bible as it was, but not. Okay. I had never actually read it. I'd never actually opened it up and poured into it and said, okay, because that is no walk in the park. That is a tough book. So.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to get that out of the way because I was curious. All right. Cool. All right. So sorry. So as you were saying.
On here. So I'll just give you a few things that we need to know about. So what NASA claims is the curvature of the Earth is 8 inches per mile squared, and what we saw up in that picture, which I'll go ahead and bring it up again so everyone can see.
Is that NASA, or is that just the Pythagorean theorem for a sphere?
Well, the Pythagorean theorem is how you make the sphere, but NASA is the one that's claiming this is the size.
Gotcha.
They're the only,
Gotcha.
They're the only out there. So, where's my little thing? Here we go. Sorry, I'm taking.
For anybody who doesn't know, what is it? The circumference is how many miles? 24,000 or something like that?
Oh man, now I got. I'm sorry, I don't have the top of my head.
It's roughly 25,000 though, right? That's the rough estimate.
Yeah, 28,000, but yeah, you're right.
Okay, just so, for anybody who didn't know, just throwing it out there.
Yeah, so up here we're at 121,000 feet, and what we're seeing across here is, I have no idea, but let's just say 100 miles. You know what I mean? From here to here is what we're seeing, or it could be more, it could be less. But the point is, if it was 8 inches per mile squared, either NASA is telling us the truth and our video that we're looking at here is wrong, or the Earth is massively larger than what NASA is telling us, which means if they're sending up all their satellites, quote unquote, and all the other crap that they're sending up there, they're sending it up there with math that they're not telling us, or they're very mistaken, and everything's still working out just fine anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's bullshit. There's no way that this would be that big, at this height, especially since we saw a video already that was claimed was at 128,000 feet, and it'd be woo, big old curve like that. Yeah. And it wouldn't be such an issue if there weren't dozens and dozens of these high altitude balloon flights refuting NASA's footage.
Yeah.
I mean, so one issue. Another one is when you're. I'd love to go through all this stuff, but I'd rather just say, for the interest of your audience, please go and check it out. When you go and you look at these videos, you're going to see, times when the sun is like huge, and then you look way out in the distance, and there's this little tiny moon way out there, and you're like, okay. Here on Earth, they look like the same size. They tell us that they're eclipsing each other and all that other nonsense. And you get up there, and it's very different. I mean, it's substantial. Yeah. And so, once again, there's got to be an explanation. We got to get to the bottom of it. If we're 93 million miles away from the Earth, and 250,000 miles from the moon, and we go up just a little bit, it's not going to change the size of it. A rocket that was shot into the sky. The guy made a rocket, and we'll see it shooting off here in just a second. Get rid of all this crap. Rocket goes up. Doing its thing, does that for a while. Let's see. Now, I wish they would have attached a camera to the top of these things. I keep wondering why they don't do that, but at least there was a second camera, it seems later, but it doesn't do much help. Let's see. So here we go. The rocket is shooting up and then suddenly just stops. And on the actual video, you can see the altitude starts dropping. Very unusual. And here it is again from, let me see if I can catch that moon. Whoops. Come on. There's the moon. Doesn't show the sun. We'll have to watch a different one for the sun. Anyway, as it turns out, in the Bible, it talks quite a few times about something called the firmament. You know, there's a vault, a dome, closed, encapsulated. In a sense, I don't really mean it in this sense, but I'm going to say it in this sense. We're like a lab experiment. We are stuck in this world with instructions and information on what it is, and that's some pretty compelling evidence so far. I'm not saying it's everything we need, but things don't just shoot up and stop out of nowhere in the middle of fucking space. Yeah. So
unless it hits that's some shit.
Yeah, again, the problem is I wish they would have had another camera that would have been helpful for us, but whatever.
Wouldn't the rocket have blown up or something though if it hit like a ceiling?
I was thinking the same thing. It might even be some kind of element we don't have any clue about. It might just be sort of like kind of cushiony, or who knows? The only thing I do know.
Yeah.
Alfred, get out of here. Get out of here. The only thing I do know is most of the people in the world don't have a clue what the sky is.
Okay.
That's one thing. We just don't. We haven't gone up there. We haven't, and anyone who has is under tight lock and key, and they're all, the 33-degree Masons and all that stuff. All our astronauts and all of our, not all of them, but, the vast majority of them are guys with tight lips. So that's kind of the high altitude balloon stuff. I'd like to do a lot more, but next thing we should probably talk about is something called the Nikon P900 camera, which I didn't know about until a few years ago. I don't think it came around until about 2014, 2015-ish. But it has, if I'm not mistaken, something like an 89 times zoom plus a 2 times attachment, which is better than most people's telescopes at home, in high definition. So people started, once again, like I said, we started checking. So I'm going to pull it up here real quick. Give me a second.
I got to get one of those Nikon P900 and point it at that fucking lighthouse.
Exactly, man. So Nikon P.
That lighthouse. My poor dad, man. That fucking informal flat Earth experiment left him like baffled for 3 weeks straight. He still doesn't know how to explain it, but it's a tough one for him.
It's going to drive him nuts. It's going to be a festering cavity in the back of his molar for a long time. It does. So, I should. Let's see.
Holy fuck, man.
Here we go. So we were all brought up in school, told that, you see a ship disappear over the horizon, because the Earth is curved. I remember, fake ass Bill Nye doing a stupid special back in the 90s, showing, how the Earth looked and why you see the ships go over the edge. And here, let me pull. Oh, I think I forgot to share the screen. Sorry. Get you on there. Get you on there. Sweet. All right. Now, this is our buoy out at who knows how long. He kind of focuses on it for a minute, starts backing up the camera, and sure as sugar, disappears. Which, if you were, to watch, if that was a buoy that was starting right here on the shore and leaving out this way, it would have the same effect on us. We would think we were watching the mast of a ship go down last, or here's another one. We can just
here's something's interesting. That's one of the things I've always heard from school. I always heard just everybody who loves to just point out, ooh, look how smart humans are. We observe things and we determine the shape of the earth. They would always say, and I always believed it myself, that the bottom of the ship disappeared first. So that is proof that the earth was disappearing over the curvature.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard Joe Rogan recently on a podcast. He was, because at first when Joe Rogan first heard about flat Earth, he literally was like, impossible. Even if you say you have evidence for it, we don't believe it. I ain't even gonna look at it, and I know it's bullshit. Without even entertaining it, he knew it. So that's basically, he's basically saying he's psychic, which is incredibly anti-science, because supposedly psychic powers don't exist. Yet Rogan was deploying psychic powers to know there was no legitimacy to a flat Earth argument without even looking into it. But of course, over the past couple years, that's what he said a few years ago, over the past couple years with his friend Eddie Bravo and the growing annoying flat earthers pestering him 24/7, Joe has had to actually look at their arguments. And he recently mentioned the Nikon P900 and how the ships reappear if you zoom in, the ships that supposedly disappeared. And Rogan said something very interesting in a very recent podcast. He said something like, well, the reason that you can still see the ship when you zoom in is because it didn't go far enough to go over the curve. And I'm like, but wait a minute. I thought you guys said that for centuries we knew the Earth was round because people could see it disappear over the horizon. But they didn't have fucking Nikon P900 and telescopes, these hundreds and hundreds of years ago. They might have had some telescopes.
They would have had to get people to listen to it.
Exactly. So it's a weird thing where it's almost like they're moving the goalpost. Everything they once claimed was proof that the Earth is a globe. Now they're saying, no, but you can further now, and it's further, and it's further, and it's funny, man.
Which means all of the stuff that they're running up there in space off of the 8 inches per mile square that they're telling us they're using, either they just made a big fuck up and lucky us, it's all running, or it's wrong. Either the Earth is much, much bigger than what we're told, which I doubt, or we're being lied to, and it sucks. It really sucks to come to the unfortunate, very high likelihood that the Earth is much smaller, or I'm not even going to say the Earth, I'm going to say the universe is much smaller and much younger than what we're being told. It sucks. It sucks coming to that determination, but there's unfortunately much more evidence on that side than on this.
Why would you say it sucks? Because I think this is super important for everybody involved in this, for me, for you, for everyone who's speculating on this. Why would you say that it sucks?
Well, for me, it's very sobering, or at least it was at first, because I was prideful and I had, I went through a lot of school. I thought I was very educated and very, I thought I could move some weight around, with my influence and my experience, and found out that I was full of shit. Found out that I was just pumped full of all this indoctrinated, just mindless bullshit, my whole life. And it's really, it's like getting hit in the face with a brick wall.
And you used to be an atheist.
Yeah, brutal.
And were you like one of those like hardcore pro-science type atheists?
Oh yeah.
So,
and the thing is, we get so impressed with the white coat and all the bubbling, chemicals in a room, we're like, oh man, that's so intimidating. I could never do anything like that. And we, that's sort of like what I found people they sort of put science on that pedestal, like that's where the smart people go, but it's bullshit. It's where the people go. If you're a scientist, you're usually fortunate enough to be, funded by some government run program where you're just going to pump out the same bullshit they're telling you to find out. Or, that's a whole mess.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to say it's all out the.
It's crazy because there is this phenomenon where I don't know if people do it for egotistical reasons, but the so-called experts in different fields and subjects, I don't know if they do it or what exactly is causing it, but my whole life I have always had this impression that the people with the degrees or the lab coats or the people with the credentials, all that credentialing stuff, all of that, it's like a classism that makes you feel like you can never possibly comprehend what they're doing. And there's been many different subjects and things in my life that upon further exploration I realized, wow, these subjects aren't as hard to grasp as it's blown out of proportion to be. And I don't know if anyone in particular is doing it on purpose, or maybe it's just, when someone becomes, a tenured professor, they kind of get egotistical, they take pride in their profession, so they want to make it seem like they're way bigger than they really are, and then that creates this sense of inferiority for people down below. Even though it's...
A little bit of,
Go ahead.
There's a famous physicist, Richard Feynman. He worked on the atom bomb. He was contemporaries with all the big heavy hitters back then, like Einstein and those guys. And he's the guy that he sort of was the foremost authority on quantum mechanics and all that business. And everyone takes quantum physics and they turn it into their stupid new age bullshit, which I fell for back in the day. But I actually sat down and I went through all the Richard Feynman lectures, all 120 hours of them or whatever, and Richard Feynman was such a good teacher and such a good professor for the very reason that you just mentioned. He took all the muck and he broke it down to where everyone would quote unquote get it. He didn't kind of sit on his, I think the word is ostentatious, when you use a bunch of words and a bunch of stuff that is intentionally above people's heads so you sound smarter. He's not that guy, And there's plenty of times where he would just break it down and say, look, right now, at this moment, I literally don't know what I'm talking about. Like I'm going to be sharing information with you guys that we ourselves haven't put together yet, So it's like, every subject can be understood. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with anyone else. What's wrong is the method. Have you been taught to discern between truth and fiction? Can you verify information? Can you take the time, to work out the details and to get to the bottom of shit, which is what the scientists do. And unfortunately, most of the people who are those kind of people aren't guys wearing lab coats. They're just regular people who are intelligent, who make shit work, who work it out. If that helps at all.
No, that's perfect. All right. I just wanted to jump into that real quick. Okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know where you were or what you were going to say next, but keep going if you got more.
So on this issue of the Nikon P900, once again, we are the first generation to ever have this technology so widely spread and economic that we can now test. We can go out there and say, hey, well, let me get back to this screen. Let's see. Right here, this big ass ship, and there's the bottom of that bastard. You know what I mean? This is a long ways. I don't know how far it is. It's at least miles. If we were going by the stupid curvature math, the water would at least be here. Where we would be saying the same song and dance. Oh, I'm singing the mast last. Because the ship's going down. So anyway, they're fast forwarding. That fool is just heading out, and they back it on up. And let's see, this guy's obviously doing something, with the lines and showing different distances and stuff. And a lot of these guys do this, they go out and they put lines on here, and then they go on Google Maps or something, and they show where the stuff is at and where the lines would be, and research. You know what I mean? Yeah. And bam, where'd you go? You're gone. You see, just like what we're told would happen, except you get out a camera and you fucking check, and guess what? Nope. So, oh yeah. So again, we're the first generation ever in human history to be able to do this. And I don't really think, if I can get all crazy sort of conspiracy analysis on you, I don't think that the elite that are governing and controlling our lives were really planning on the internet blowing up this fast and us being able to communicate this quickly. Maybe so. Maybe it's all been a big plan. We're all being duped into it. I'm not sure. But at least to this point, I sort of get the feeling like the deception is spinning out of control, and that 2018 is going to be the year of flat Earth or whatever. Like whatever it might be. There's just too many people on their phones, on their camera, posting stuff too fast. You can't stop the info now. You know what I mean? And, well, of course, with YouTube, they're going to do whatever they can to, censor and filter like they're doing to all the other people who are, giving information that's, disappointing or true or whatever, all that stuff. So the unfortunate truth is what we are seeing on that camera is not what we are being told. It is not backed up by the phony math that we're being, told is the case. I don't know if you've seen the famous picture of Chicago from the other side of Lake Michigan and the news.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was watching the counter arguments to it, and it seems like it's pretty. I don't know. It seems like both sides were providing moderate arguments for it. This other dude, I think,
it's not an argument. That does not look like a mirage for anyone else that's seen a mirage.
Yeah. I'm trying to. It's just a random video. I won't even try to remember what it was. But go ahead.
Oh, they try to say that there's light around the corner, or not around the corner, but light going over the curve and just all, converging just right for us to see it, or some bullshit about. Whatever it is, it's something that they're claiming that has absolutely no basis in experiment. There is not one single experiment on the Earth I've looked that shows this claim that light bends around anything. Besides, magnifying glasses and stuff, but it doesn't look like what you're looking at when you look at Chicago. If you look at it through a magnifying glass, it's going to be all distorted, and everything's going to be a little off. So I heard about this. I haven't confirmed this, but about a year or two ago, there were people trying to buy the Nikon P900 camera on Amazon and stuff, and it was out of stock just for this reason alone, for people trying to go out there and check this stuff out.
Yeah, I saw. Did you remember the original weatherman who reported on the so-called mirage of the Chicago skyline? You remember the weatherman report?
I remember.
About a year later, he did a follow-up report. Did you see the follow-up report that he did about a year later, trying to refute all the flat earther arguments?
No, I didn't.
He actually did. He on the 1-year anniversary, the same weatherman. After getting inundated with flat earthers, he decided to do a follow-up report on the 1-year anniversary, and he went to all the experts. He went to all the experts, and they provided all, by the time you're done watching the report, you're just getting bombarded with all these terms and this effect and that atmospheric this, and then by the time you're done, you're just like, oh well, the smart dude in the science lab said a bunch of big words, so he must be right. Flat Earth debunked. And then I went down a fucking YouTube rabbit hole where I was watching the debunking of the weatherman and then the weather. So it was crazy, and I still don't know what the hell to think, but it's just crazy. So sorry, that was what I threw in there.
Well, a shitty teacher is one that talks to you for 10, 15 minutes and you're more confused when it's done, which is the modus operandi for, any spokesperson for either the government or NASA or the military or whatever who's, addressing this issue. If they're talking for 10 or 15 minutes and you've got, a dozen more questions than when you first started, totally getting screwed. You're totally getting, if you're looking at a teacher like Richard Feynman or some of the other people around that know how to break things down well, after 10 to 15 minutes, you at least have more clarity if you don't have the actual answer. You've tightened up some loose ends.
Sure.
Otherwise, the person is just bullshitting you because either they're incompetent or manipulative. So, okay, so let's go on to NASA, because we can't really go any further without talking about NASA, because everyone always bringing that up. They're like, well, NASA says this and NASA has pictures and blah, blah, blah. So if I had to break it down in just a few words, I would say NASA is fraudulent. That's the best way I would put it. It's let me go to my screen share thing again. Bam.
I'm really curious about the 24/7 live stream from the International Space Station.
Oh yeah, total bullshit. So this is a person who pulled off some images. I don't know if you've heard of him, ODD TV. Pulled some images off of NASA, off their website, and NASA 50, 60 years ago was not planning on us having at our disposal in every household Photoshop that you can go and take old photos and mess with the saturation and the contrast and all that stuff. They had no, I'm assuming they had no clue we would be doing that. So here's an example. This is an actual picture, and then this is him, you know, messing with the contrast and such, or whatever it is. And look, when you people don't realize this, but there's actually several shades of black when it comes to photography. You know, you can't just stick a black image on top of another black image and take a picture and not detect it later on with the equipment that we have today. Now, from to the naked eye, you wouldn't be able to tell, but this is a picture placed on top of a picture. You know what I mean? Anybody, and once again, household experiment. Anyone can go on NASA's website, download the pictures, and in 45 seconds say, what the hell is that? Yeah. Right? Oh, is this some kind of crazy, you know, space anomaly that some dipshit scientist is going to try to explain now? You know, what the hell's going on there, you know, in the sky? So, hey, you know, just
I heard one refutation where the guy said, well, back in the 60s, they had to develop the photos, you know, in that old style way of developing photos in the little liquid pan in the red lit room. And supposedly they had to maybe, you know, piece it together. It's like, why are they piecing together a straight up photo from the moon of Earth? Like, you shouldn't have to piece that together. Just take the fucking photo and, oh my God, look how incredible our universe is. But it's like there's always so many weird things about a lot of these photos.
You're getting boned, man. You're getting swindled. I mean, if it is a composite, I'll even take their stupid ass word with that. If it is a composite, show me another piece of evidence, or show me another experiment that you did that you had to use the composite because the actual picture wouldn't work. You know, if that experiment doesn't exist, stop wasting all of our fucking time and money. You know what I mean? So here's another one. This is this is the Photoshop guy, the guy who makes the Earth, and I mean, this is all disclosed. I mean, I guess they're sort of happy about it. I don't understand. I sort of do, but okay. Here's the blue marble guy, and you know, I'll just kind of show your audience here the video to find. You know, this NASA graphic designer admits all images about space are fake, and I have the volume turned off for your purposes, but. You know, he goes through and they talk about all the spots that he had to Photoshop because it doesn't look right, you know, if you don't do it. He talks about how when he made the Earth, you know, picture, it just comes out looking kind of flat. So you see all these spots that are copied and pasted. And, you know, there's another one, I think it was along the lines of what you mentioned. There's an alleged shot from space from super far away of the Earth turning in a 24-hour period. And all of the clouds are in the exact same spot as the Earth turns. I might take the time to find it for you right now. But
is that the Himawari satellite? That one?
That's
the Japanese satellite that takes a photo every 10 minutes. Joe Rogan brought it up to Eddie Bravo.
Yeah, it's probably it. So, I mean, another one. This is supposed to be actual footage, you know, from space. I mean, this looks fake as fuck. You know what I mean? Fake as fuck.
Yeah, I mean, the previous one you were showing looked absolutely absurd. Like, there's no way there's no way they're claiming that was real. Were they claiming that was real?
Yeah, they say this is actual footage from the camera in space.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta admit that does look absurd. Now, Joe Rogan would say, but you've never been out in space looking at Earth and the moon from tens of hundreds of thousands of miles away, so how would you know it looks fake? So, like, it's this weird kind of like your intuition and your senses tell you that's bullshit, but then they're like, but how could you truly know? And then you have to override your intuition and be like, okay, well, maybe I can't know. So it's this weird thing. But it does look fake as shit, what you just showed me.
I don't know if the Earth is round. I just want to know one person who has been there, and every single person who has claimed to have been there is extremely tight-lipped. All of the evidence that we're getting is from people say, well, that guy's got it. And oh, by the way, NASA claims that all of the telemetry data from the first just accidentally erased over it. Possibly the most important film ever filmed ever in the history of the planet. Buying that bullshit because they just like, well, we can't find it and see ya. Yeah, we'll talk to you later about it.
Yeah.
This is an organization that makes whatever it is, $80 billion a year or whatnot, just losing shit. So Um, yeah, you have the composite pictures. I'd like to go through all this, but I think we'll probably get through everything if I just tell you about it. Your audience can take a look for it. If you look up any, I mean, here's my website. It is not, it's not, it doesn't have that much in there, but if you go on there, here we are. Just some information about how you can sign up for the $1,000, and then there's all these pages are just videos of all the stuff that just have enormous questions. And like here's another one, NASA. You have all these shots where they're obviously on wires. You know what I mean? It's stupid obvious. Like I feel angry that they're trying to pull shit past me. But anyway, it's all nonsense. All of the spacewalks are done underwater. You can look up bubbles in space. There's wires. They talk about there's this plane they go on called the Vomit Comet where they fly it just right where it makes it look like you're floating. And all of the shots of NASA where you see people floating, they're never longer than 30 seconds or something, or however long the plane can go down. Everything else is just them sitting in the middle of the air like some douchebag on a microphone. They're passing stuff that they can't see because they have these things in their eyes that are showing them animations.
I've seen those videos. I've seen those videos where they theorize that they're basically using some kind of augmented reality type of system, because there are some weird anomalies. This might sound crazy to people, but if you look up some of the videos that I've seen, you'll see these live streams from the space station, and they're kind of floating around there, and you see like objects floating around. And there was one recently, not even maybe a couple weeks ago, where all three of the people talking in front of the camera, all three at the very exact moment, all three of their bodies kind of glitched out.
Yeah, like that shit happens in space. It's just magic space.
Yeah, that's the physics of space, I guess. Maybe they got sucked into a wormhole or something. That's the explanation.
Yeah. No, we all know how it is.
And it was weird. They just literally it was like if you went in there with a video editor and you cropped them out, and they just a perfect outline of three people in the space station just glitched out, and that would indicate some type of green screen chroma key type effect. Just really weird things. There's other images of people in the background like going off the edge of the screen, and they literally like dematerialize as they go off the edge of the screen. Like I don't know if some flat earther like fucking, faked that, or that's the actual raw footage, but it's really weird shit. And
yeah,
I know that this for a lot of people watching, this is where shit gets crazy. This is where it's like, okay, so wait, what are you saying? Are you saying that the entire NASA operation with tens of thousands, maybe people working full salaries, going to work 5 days a week from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., are they all just there, like, just pretending? Do they know they're in on a big scheme? Is it compartmentalization? The people at the bottom don't really know what's happening? Like, how do you explain such a grand scam?
Yeah, my guess would be the compartmentalization, especially if you have people who are working their whole lives with the dream of working for NASA, and so they're going to stick them in some department where they think they're doing something. I mean, that's how I would do it if I were, running the fraudulent enterprise. Because all you really need is a couple $1 million, to have a building and to make it look like shit's happening, and then you just get to keep all the rest for your own. Put out some terrible bullshit videos, of people floating in space, and all of us Americans, we're all excited about it because no one's taking the time to look into it.
Yeah.
So another one, the Challenger explosion. I mean, it sounds like you're familiar with a lot of this stuff. Have you heard of Challenger explosion?
I mean, I know about it from mainstream news, but I don't think I've ever heard a flat Earth interpretation of it.
Six of the 7 astronauts that were in the explosion of the Challenger are still alive, with several of them not even bothering to change their names, working as professors at universities. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. I mean, I'll see if I can find it here.
I heard about that. I saw that meme. Yeah. I saw that fucking meme. I was like, this is too crazy to be true.
Yeah. And what's even more insane is everyone's like, kind of like what I was, back in the day. I was like, well, fuck it,
Yeah.
where are you going tomorrow? Like, it's just, And so that's a whole big issue. Everyone look into Challenger if you haven't already. Green screens all over the place. There's shots of George Bush being wheeled through the headquarters at NASA, and there's dudes standing in front of a green screen doing a stupid little speech or whatnot with his the animations. You can see him, like, his hands are moving and they're doing stuff in the background that they didn't know he was getting picked up, I'm assuming. We did all the screwed up pictures, or there's a lot of screwed up pictures, bubbles in space. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at my notes here. Clouds that don't move. Even NASA's own footage at 200,000 feet shows a flat plane. I got to find that here for you. I think it's in here somewhere. Give me a moment.
It's funny, I was watching official NASA rocket launch footage. They attach cameras to the rocket and they send it up, straight up into space. And I was watching it to see, like, okay, what is the official NASA footage showing us of Earth? So I'm watching, and the rocket starts to go up, and it goes up higher, higher, and finally it goes up into space. I'm like, all right, here we go. Now we get to see what is the official NASA, because a lot of times everything I've seen from space, I see it through the flat earthers. So I wanted to go, let me try to get some balance here. Let me go to NASA official rocket ship, rocket launch footage. And it goes up, and at first, once the rocket gets into space and it's floating, the Earth looks curved. And I'm like, well, I mean, it's curved. Doesn't prove it's curved. They could be lying. But I waited, and I kept watching, and eventually, as the rocket spins, suddenly the curve starts to flatten out, and then it becomes concave, and it becomes a U-shaped, and then it flattens out again and becomes curve again. So even freaking NASA's apparently using fisheye lens.
Oh yeah, and there are a few people who are throwing up balloons with the fisheye lens. You're like, see, it's curved, and then you get back down, and the Earth's curved at 80 feet.
Exactly.
I'm like, come on,
absurd.
This is rookie shit.
And that's crazy, because that's really telling. Isn't that really telling of the so-called scientific mind of the average person who thinks it's a sphere? Like, if you think curvature on a fisheye lens at 80 feet proves the Earth is a curve, and you actually believe that, that kind of shockingly reveals how pathetically low your standard for actual scientific evidence is, which is scary coming from the people who think that they're the ones being scientific, who think they're the ones with the intellectual high horse.
Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with Stefan Molyneux. I watch him every now and then, and he kind of, a nice way of looking into this, or putting it the way you were talking about, is just the ostracization. So now once you see something that's so shocking, or once you have to face something like that, then you'll just you'll to just ridicule, and just try to make fun of people to get them to finally, like, make you feel a bit better that your whole world isn't blown. So here's one that I was finding for you. This is actually NASA's footage, and they're up at 60 miles. I think it was 200,000 feet. So they're talking about their blah, 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 doing their stuff. They're way up here. I think they said that they were testing a rocket from a high altitude, and there is the horizon at 200,000 feet.
All the way up at the eye level.
Yep. This is NASA's footage. I mean, how much more goddamn obvious does it get?
Now, if it's a fisheye lens, it could make a flat look curved and even concave. So technically, if it looks flat on that, if it was a fisheye, then technically it doesn't prove the Earth is flat, because it could technically be warped into anything. But I guess the point is that even the damn NASA footage can't even be trusted, because either the thing is flat, or they're using a fisheye, and it can be any shape.
Yeah. There are so many problems with NASA, it simply cannot be considered as evidence. We have to find something else. There has to be another experiment, which I have looked into. And number one, there has never been one single experiment ever in the history of human existence that proves the Earth is curved. There has never been one experiment that has ever proved the sun is 93 million miles away, or that the moon is 250,000 miles away. There's a lot of conjecture, there's a lot of theories, there's a lot of working out funny math that no one else gets to see, but there has not been one single experiment ever. And I was a math major, and we dabbled into physics a lot back in college. I would have figured by college time there would have been at least one single classroom activity or experiment that had anything to do with the shape of the Earth. At least one. Never, not once shows up in the textbook. Not once ever shows up in discussion. Because it can't be done. I mean, if there is any physics teacher that knows this stuff, that person knows there's no experiment on Earth. If there was, they would have showed up by now, especially in the internet age, and especially since the flat Earth movement. You know what I mean? So
let me ask you real quick. So a big question is, why would they lie about this? And I was just thinking of, I've thought about it before, and I did a video once about why they would lie. But one reason I just thought of right now was, so everybody knows the theory that the moon landing was faked because we were in a space race and we needed to fake it in order to beat the Russians, right? Let's say that conspiracy, which is pretty mainstream and everybody's heard of it, and probably a good number of people believe it. Let's say that's true, and NASA faked a bunch of images of around Earth, of around, well, not the moon. We can see the moon is round, but they faked all these images of around Earth, right? The images and the videos they took from space and from around the moon and on the moon. What do you think about the theory that maybe the reason that they're lying to us about the shape of the Earth is because to admit it's flat would immediately invalidate the entire moon landing, from which we got these supposed, round images of the Earth? Maybe it's not so much that they're trying to preserve the heliocentric globe model, as much as maybe they just don't want to basically retroactively expose the entire hoax that was the moon landing, which would also invalidate NASA across the board. What do you think about that?
Yeah, but it's likely more sinister than that.
Okay, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it could just be one big thing because they don't want to look stupid and say oops, but nah, I'm not buying that. And sorry, I was just thinking something that you mentioned. I wanted to, oh, dang it. Well,
it'll come back to you. Don't try too hard. It never comes back when you try hard.
Yeah. Speaking of space, here's one thing that we were never taught in school. The very first man in space, his name was Augustin Picard. And we were always taught the first man in space was either John Glenn or Neil Armstrong or whatever, at least the heavy hitters. But way before any of those guys, in the earliest 20th century, there was a guy named Augustin Picard. And he went up in, I want to say, a big kind of like an aluminum ball with a window and floated up to about 60,000 feet. And this was all put in Modern Science, the journal at the time. And he came down, and I'm going to go ahead just for your audience's purposes and show them where they can find it. Let's see here. So if you go to my website in the first exhibit room, this is the video right here. And, well, I better not play it. I'll just let them find it later. I'll give you the gist. He went up, came back down. They said, okay, what'd you see? And this is his quote. And this is in Modern Science right now. It was in, like, I want to say, I could be wrong, 1919, maybe 1920, 1921, somewhere around there. Got back down and said it looked like a flat plane with upturned edge. That's fucked up. So, and everyone, I'm sure everyone thought the same, like, you're out your mind. So
how high did he go? 60,000 something feet?
60,000, yeah, I think so.
Interesting.
I could look at it right now if we really want to, but I don't think it's necessary. Yeah, he said the Earth was flat as hell, and
this ended up in that magazine publication, right?
Published in a popular magazine. And that video that I showed you is the one of the guys. He actually on stage, he went and bought that actual journal from on eBay and showed them the actual article in front of their face, and so.
Pretty crazy.
Not saying that it's foolproof. I'm just saying when we're talking about evidence, that's a hell of a lot heavier. That you're actually getting the journal of what this guy said. And I mean, people don't go through all that work. People don't go through put their lives at risk, go all the way up there and hope for the best just to come back down and say a joke, and sort of say a lot for fun. It just doesn't add up. It does if you're getting paid billions and billions of dollars a year to have a bunch of people on staff that have to keep their mouth shut. Then that's a different story.
Mm.
So yeah, that was Augustine Picard. Very peculiar to me that his name not even close to brought up in school. In fact, it's the same Picard that the Next Generation Star Trek captain was named after.
Really?
So, and that turns into a whole mess when you talk about the media and Hollywood and all that shit. So, let's see. As far as the curvature is concerned, 8 inches per mile squared. In case anyone's wondering, at 3 miles, a 6-foot man disappears, and there's been all kinds of experiments done on this of people sitting in a rowboat or in a canoe, and they're in the water. They go out 3, 4, 5 miles, and sure as sugar, they're showing up in the camera. So at 3 miles, a 6-foot man disappears. At 10 miles, 66 feet disappear, and at 20 miles, 266, and it goes on and on. There are plenty of videos by naval weapons specialists that say that there is no adjustment whatsoever made for curvature on line of sight weaponry. 50, 60, 70 miles doesn't matter. Whatever they're trying to hit, it's a flat surface. There's even if there was adjustment I'm not buying that we have the technology to curve around the earth and that somehow that we can fire a weapon that can work all that out. It's just no. If it is, that's not what they're telling us. The actual naval weapon specialists are saying no adjustment for curvature. Say there are tons of videos online on YouTube of surveyors saying no adjustment made for curvature when we survey the land.
It's funny. Curvature is enough for light's refracting and bending over the curvature, causing mirages. But according to you, it's not enough to even be taken into account for weapons.
If there is no experiment to prove it, then it cannot be presented as evidence. Unfortunately, I would very much like to believe that was the case, but
did you see my lighthouse video?
Yeah, that's when I contacted you.
So, I mean, is that basically what you were expecting? I mean, like, were the results of that video basically exactly what you would expect on a supposed flat Earth?
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, unless there's someone else to bring up another explanation, but there's no other explanation with any kind of weight of evidence.
It's pretty absurd how much we could friggin' see. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was with a shitty pair of binoculars. Like, I want to get a Nikon and test it out.
Yeah, I'm getting one. You should get one.
I might get one. I might revisit the experiment because it's just there's just too many questions. No one has given me a good explanation yet for why I could see that so much of that damn lighthouse.
Nope. It's because it's right there. It's on the same level as you. That's why.
That's crazy, bro.
Another common question is, okay, well, why don't we fall off? It's when they start doing the ridicule, or when they start doing the, you know what I mean? Like when they're trying to bolster their position by trying to make me feel stupid, which, I took ballet for 11 years, and when I was a kid, no one can ever make me feel stupider than I did when I was growing up. That is far beyond me. Try to make me stupid, it won't work. So why don't we fall off the edge? Well, right now the assumption is that the South Pole is actually Antarctica, which is surrounding, I guess if you want to think of it as a plate, it's the edge of the plate. And there's an ice wall. There's plenty of pictures of it. At least the pictures that they're showing us, they could all be bullshit because the only people who get to go to Antarctica are the people who don't say shit. So, and none of us are allowed to go, which is another reason why I say, is it a household experiment? Is the data available? We're not even allowed to see Antarctica, you know what I mean? Which means some shit's going down there. Definitely. So there's all kinds of bases there. There's an old Nazi base, I guess, that they found. There's current bases there. And I mean, the Pope has traveled to Antarctica and they're doing all these bizarre, strange rituals, with it's just weird, man. It's really fucking weird. And I don't know if you ever heard of Admiral Byrd.
Yes.
Does that ring a bell? Okay, so for your audience, look up Admiral Byrd. After World War II, there was this guy got clearance to go check out Antarctica, comes back saying some crazy shit. Come back saying, that there's a whole other area of land, and he says beyond the South Pole, something to the effect of pass over Middle Earth or Middle America or something, and you're like, what the fuck? This guy's an admiral? Like, what the hell is he talking about? So then you're like, and it's possible that he reached the edge, the dome or whatever, and maybe he saw something on the other side and couldn't get there. He had this look of like, like some solemn disappointment. Like he was saying like it's a real shame that there's these untapped resources that we don't get into. And when you think about today's day and age and all the entrepreneurs and explorers and all the people that want to make a name for themselves, I mean, can you imagine how famous you would be in the world if you got to, if you traveled to Antarctica and found some place, wanted, if they even have those laws, whatever the case may be, it's unheard of that all the people that have that kind of drive and desire, that it hasn't happened yet in all of this time. It just doesn't add up. So Admiral Byrd comes back saying all kinds of crazy shit, which only makes half sense if you're talking about a flat plane. If you're talking about, well, he called it Middle America. So if he saw these other continents and whatnot outside that rim, that would be Outer America or whatever was in his mind. I don't know. And we're never going to go back and find out, of course. We only have these small little windows of just horseshit that we have to filter through. And so there's that issue. I don't know. Do you have any questions about the Admiral Byrd stuff?
No, I don't. I mean, I've listened to a few videos about him, and it's interesting what he said. But yeah, I don't really have much to say on that.
All right. So there was a lady. I'm so sorry. I tried to find her name before I got on with you, but maybe I'll find her later and send it over to you if it matters. But there was a lady who did a famous experiment in like early 20th century, I believe. She put up a blimp. She went up in a blimp on top of New York, and I believe it was, or I think she did it over LA, and they were expecting to see New York a few hours later, because they were going to say, well, if the Earth is spinning, then we'll just sit up here in this blimp. And nothing happened. She was just chilling there for hours. Hours went by, blimps just, because nothing's moving. Everything's just here. And if you're there's people who are going to try to give me this, crazy ass story that if the blimp's here, gravity somehow has this magical knowledge that keeps you just right there, if you're not trying to do anything. But if you decide to move around, it releases you.
But there's also the Earth isn't just spinning, the atmosphere spins with the Earth, and so that's what keeps the blimp right over New York.
Sure. Yeah, sure. And and so now it's the atmosphere, and this very complex design of all this atmosphere we're gonna incorporate now into gravity, and gravity is now kind of like cross-examining and checking with everything in the atmosphere to make sure everything's working out. I mean, it just doesn't add up.
Yeah, I've thought very extensively about that question of, if let's say you get in a helicopter and you hover over the Earth, I mean, isn't the Earth going to just spin underneath you and you can just stand still? Very counterintuitive when you believe the Earth is a globe. No one ever thinks that way. Oh, just stay up there. But then always the counter argument I hear is, well, the atmosphere is spinning too, and that's creating the sort of wind resistance that's pushing you, and the air is almost fluid-like, and it's bringing you along with it. And then you get into discussions about, well, if you fly on a plane in the direction, with the direction of the Earth's spin, wouldn't, as opposed to flying in a plane against the Earth's spin, wouldn't you land at your destination sooner? And it's funny because I've got into pretty extensive discussions with my dad on this topic, and it comes down to relativity. Like, I think, if I recall, like the ultimate explanation for this was relativity. I think my dad was telling me relativity. You have to whoop out the old relativity, where
I got bad news.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because Einstein's theory on relativity only exists because of an issue that they had in something called the Morrison experiment. It was an experiment with light on this topic where I'll spare you all the details.
Yeah, the Michelson-Morley experiment, yeah.
You know about that? Okay. That's the only reason why Einstein's theory of relativity came up, was to try to account for the contingency that they couldn't explain what was happening, because the light was supposed to be bending because the Earth is spinning, and it wasn't. So, yeah, I mean, to bring it back down to Einstein's relativity, Einstein's a hack, man. He's a fraud. I mean, I don't know if you looked into Nikola Tesla, he talked all kinds of shit about Einstein and all those other guys, because he said all of these scientists today are just, theoretical blowhards, and they don't have any experiment to show, which is why I would bring up, with the whole issue of the plane and the atmosphere and stuff. That's great. Is there one single experiment that can verify that? Because if the only experiment they have is that the Earth's too fucking big and we can't check, so tough, not gonna work with me. Other experiment that can at least, even if only somewhat, simulate kind of what they're trying to explain to us there.
Yeah, I find it so convenient that the
We're gonna bitch
plane,
about science.
huh?
Where's the experiment?
What?
You know, because for all the people who are gonna bitch about, well, we got to do this like science. Well, where's the experiment?
Yeah. I did always find it so incredibly convenient that on the whole thought experiment of does a plane flying against the Earth's spin land sooner than a plane flying with the Earth's spin or vice versa,
Good.
it just seemed almost too convenient, the explanations. So the Earth, the atmosphere is pushing, and then
Mhm.
and then you get into this crazy thing. Again, I think it has to do with relative speeds, and it comes back to relativity, where well, it's about ground speed. So really, what we think of as 0 miles an hour, technically it's not 0 miles an hour because we're technically spinning at however many miles an hour on the earth. So oh my god, dude, and I swear to god, like I've had these lengthy half
From
hour
Seattle,
long, huh?
if you're flying from Seattle to LA, you would end up having to fly southwest because by the time you reached LA, the Earth would be over here. That's part of it. So, but you don't. You fly south. To go from Seattle to LA, bam, it's a southern flight. It's not like they're up there and the pilot's looking at south on his compass and just decided to turn this way just for the fuck of it, and then they're gonna end up in LA.
Mm.
So if the Earth's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, and it takes a few hours to get there, well, work out the math, work out the elementary math. It's not even not even difficult stuff.
Yeah.
So
And a lot of times, we would get in, me and my dad would get into this super deep and lengthy trying to explain because I'm like, okay, well, if you're going, if you're flying, let's say from Miami to California, you're going from east to west and you're going against the spin of the earth. That means California is coming towards you. So I'm like, well, fuck. I mean, if your destination is moving towards you while you're flying towards it, it's gotta be so much quicker. But
yeah,
apparently it's not because conveniently, um, when you're up in the atmosphere, and because the atmosphere is moving too, as they claim, it's spinning with the Earth, you have to go, you're flying against all that air resistance. So that's
yeah,
why you can still fly the exact same miles per hour, east or west, and you're still going to get to your destination in roughly the same time. And it's just so convenient sometimes. It just makes me, it's just weird. It's weird.
yeah. And with every new explanation, you just get more and more bullshit. You just get more and more of like 10, 15 minutes goes by where these stupid spokesmen are talking and nothing's answered, and you end up walking away with 20 more questions that they never do get to, and it just kind of just keeps unraveling, and they just hope that everything's going to be so convoluted and fucked up no one's ever going to go to the core, and hit the issue at the bottom. And I'm not that kind of guy. So while we're on that topic, I think it's probably good. Let me get you over here. Since we're talking about flights, I was going to say this for later, but let's do it now. Have you ever checked out the Southern Hemisphere flights?
Oh, yeah, I've seen a little bit about it.
Yeah, so this guy takes it, breaks it down, goes on, shows all the different flights. Okay, let's get past this stuff. Blah blah blah. Okay, these are all the different flights that he's looking at, and he walks you through everything. He talks about how, the flights look totally. And I've done a few international flights, and I remember thinking to myself, why in the fuck are we going all the way over here just to get me to Sri Lanka or to get me over to India or whatever? So here's what the flight looks like. You're leaving from the bottom of South America. You should just be boop right there. I mean, this makes total business economic sense. This does not. Going all the way up to the top of North America, or right, top of America, and then going all the way down like that. And so you work it, okay, you're looking at it. And, I mean, this is what it looks like on a flat Earth. And it's all the Southern Hemisphere flights. You have this mystery of when you go to buy a ticket, there's only one flight or so that's a direct flight, and you click on it, and it's always mysteriously unavailable. There's never any tickets or whatnot. All the other functional flights are always two flights, and they're going to some weird, bizarre shit. Like there's another one right here. You'll see. Let's find it. Like look at this look at this absolute clusterfuck mess. So you're down here in the bottom of Australia. You should just be able to go whoop right over there, South Africa. They go all the way up to China, or they go all the way over here to Saudi Arabia, which they're claiming that they're picking up passengers or refueling or all that nonsense. Like you would have to fly all the way over here just to grab a few passengers, to get over to South Africa. I mean, absolute horseshit, absolute nonsense. I mean, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for me that I fell for it for all the years that I did, and I don't know really how to approach people these days, because once you know it, it's like it's so aggravating. But I have to remind myself that I was there too. But so that's a big problem. I mean, I think anyone would agree. Who in their right mind would ever run a business like that? No one, unless obviously you're stuck with this problem of having this real terrain and you got to get everything over here. And well,
it does look a little odd. I mean, I'm not a freaking aviation expert, so I can't say I know what the best business model is, but it does look weird. It's quite the fucking detour. If those routes are even accurate.
30-hour flight.
Huh?
I mean, it turns a 12-hour flight into a 30-hour flight. Why? Why would anyone want to put themselves through that? Unless you had no other choice, unless that's literally the halfway point,
right.
Going all the way up, and then they stop to refuel, get some passengers, and then it looks like you're going down.
That's pretty crazy shit.
On the earlier topic, the lady with the blimp, she did a blimp experiment. Sure enough, fail, right? So this is the same lady apparently that single-handedly by herself went to Antarctica to explore, or at least I think the last time. There was once she went and her crew couldn't get past. It was too cold, or there was a storm. I think she attempted a second try, got through a little bit, but whatever happened, I got to go back and watch the video to be sure. But the third time, she got lost. No one ever found her until about 30 years later. Some guy was out there and he found her snowmobile and found her, and her camera was corrupted. I think he picked it up and the camera came out and they didn't get you the pictures, but there was a small note on her that said, "I found it," and something like her name, whatever it was. And I don't recall at the moment if she said she was trying to find the edge or trying to find the dome or whatever, but that's interesting. It was the same lady who did the blimp experiment way back trying to prove that the earth was flat. So,
pretty crazy.
These are just we're definitely not going to hear about in school, not only because most, like your average C+, government teacher would be too embarrassed to even bring the topic up because they would be too afraid of the ridicule because they don't have like the guts and the conviction to look into stuff and to proclaim. And then the second, of course, is because the government school is run by the elite that's no way in hell going to share with us the truth, which again, for a lot of people don't seem like it's a big deal to have the earth be round or flat, but it is. It's a very big deal. So, okay, sorry to go so fast, but let's get into gravity. Gravity is bullshit. You can break down everything that I'm aware of that's going on in the world with buoyancy, density, and electromagnetism. And there's another video. I suppose we could probably find it. I don't know if, let's see, I got to find it here on my website. Give me a moment. And there's one where
invented or discovered or postularized gravity first.
Who was the first one?
Yeah, like would you happen to know that?
What comes to mind for me, I'm not sure if I'm right, but it would be Newton when he did when he had the apple in his head or whatever.
Right.
But he was a Illuminati, Masonic, whatever, all that crazy crap that I'm not going to bother getting into because it's too crazy. But yeah, here is one. This is the old gravity thing we were taught in school, where two different objects at different weights will fall together because of gravity. Bullshit. Here is a refrigerator and a pillow. And there, these two guys are arguing about what's going to happen, and this guy is saying, well, they're going to fall, they're going to fall at the same time. This guy says, no, they're not. And here we go. Yeah, safety first. And sure enough, not even close. So here's another one here. You got a soccer ball and a bowling ball. Like, okay, well, it's because they were the different sizes, or they start making, everyone's always got an excuse for what happens. So they bring it up. Now you got the ball same shape, and they're gonna say, okay, well, it's gonna be different this time. Nope. Bowling ball lands first. volleyball lands second. Because when you break it down.
Wait, are you suggesting that dishwasher, whatever the fuck it was, and the pillow, you're saying that in the flat Earth model they should both hit the floor at the same time?
No, in the globe model, they should hit the floor at the same time because the claim is that gravity pulls on everything to get them to fall together. So if something's really heavy, gravity will pull on this just a little less, but it'll pull the light one harder so they both land together. It's bullshit. Break down everything into air density and buoyancy and electromagnetism, and everything looks exactly like what we just saw.
Right, because they say that if you perform the same experiment in a vacuum without any friction, that they both land at the exact same time.
And they do, because then you don't have to worry about gravity anymore because the vacuum is pulling everything, you know? So we were duped. We were shown the experiment from 6 feet, you know, or 10 feet, where it always looks like they're landing at the same time. And you need to have 80 or 90 feet or whatever it is, you know, to see the discrepancy.
Oh. So in that video, they don't land at the same time, right? That dishwasher and the pillow, they do not, right?
Right, it's a big difference.
Okay,
yeah.
So they do not. Okay, that's what I saw. And that's what you're saying you would see, you know, in your view of the world.
Yes, if the Earth was flat and was not reliant upon gravity, but was reliant instead upon density, buoyancy, and electromagnetism, that's what would happen. You have one object that's denser than the air, right? One object that is also denser than the air, but not near as dense as this, right? Well, this object is going to push through all that stuff in the air because it's heavier and denser. This one will not. So the volleyball will kind of just do this, you know, petering down kind of thing, while the bowling ball will drop straight down.
Yeah.
So, just again, I just kind of wanted to get for your audience kind of like a little piece of everything because I wish I could go into it all. But then there's Nikola Tesla. He had plenty to say about the nature of our Earth and how he tapped into its power. I don't know if you've seen like the pictures of you know, his tower where he's standing there or he's sitting in the middle like this and there's all this electricity flying everywhere and he's totally cool, you know, or just, I mean, all of his work was destroyed. His life was ruined by Thomas Edison in conjunction with that other banker that I can't remember his name now. A bank that's still around today, but I'm sorry, it's escaping me at the moment, but there's a very good reason why he was hidden from us and why he was destroyed, because he figured out a lot of shit. He figured out how to draw power from what I'm assuming is the dome. No one knows what that tower was about, but it seems like it had something to do with that. I mean, the reason why we have radio and like, you know, and cell phones and all, it's all because of Tesla. All the stuff that we enjoy today, damn near everything is because of that guy, and no one's ever heard of him. Yeah. That is by design.
That's pretty crazy.
So, Southern Hemisphere flights, we covered that.
I don't remember learning about Tesla in school.
Hell no. Hell no. Because, I mean, especially any red-blooded, healthy male, you know, is going to get information like that and go, well, I want a piece of that. You know, I want to figure out how to do that because that's what we like to do, you know. And so just even entertaining our minds when we were young with stuff like that would have been disastrous for the people running the show. So pilots, there's a lot of pilots on YouTube who even they fly up there and they even sent pictures to their friends saying, see, stupid ass, the earth is curved, you know. And then the guy takes the actual picture taken from his pilot friend, puts it on Photoshop, throws the contrast over to the side, and sure enough, straight as hell. So check out, you know, pilots on YouTube. There's a lot of pilots talking about they're flying up, and when they're flying like over Texas going towards California, they can see all the mountains all the way up to Canada. I mean, there's no way you'd be able to see that. And I mean, I can't imagine a pilot would risk his career and, you know, and his reputation saying something so stupid unless he was actually seeing that. So, moon and the stars. I wish I could get into all the stuff about the sun.
Could I ask you about supposedly how if you're in the southern hemisphere, there's only certain star constellations you can see that you cannot see in the northern hemisphere? This is a claim I heard from a flat earth debunker on YouTube, that there are stars you can only see in the southern hemisphere because that proves the earth is a globe. You know anything about that?
Yeah, the one that I heard lately is just because of density and stuff in the air. It's the same reason why you can't see England from New York, if you had a strong enough telescope and nothing in your way, for distortion, you would see it just as well. It's the same issue with the stars, from what I heard last.
Yeah.
But yeah, in that regard, I don't really know, but I do know this, that every single last star is in the exact same position that it has been in the last 5,000 years of star-taking records. And I don't know if you've seen the video, but there's a famous animation on the stuff of showing what the Earth going around the sun going around the galaxy, and all those galaxies are in this crazy ass fucking fucked up soup of just everything moving everywhere in sort of like a cohesive, symmetrical fashion in a way, but not exactly, right? So, but in 5,000 years, there would have been at least one star, that would have been off in the slightest degree. All 3 stars of Orion's belt are the exact same spot as I remember them being when I was 6 and 7 years old, as much as all the other stars in the sky. And there's no other person contending that any star has moved that I'm aware of in human history up to this point. And that really, quite frankly, was what threw me off finally at the end. I was like, that doesn't add up. If we're swimming around in some crazy soup of just all this matter just doing its thing, there would have been, that means one star that's like 50 million light years away is maintaining its position wherever the Earth is every single last year during this whole crazy just journey of flying through quote unquote space. It just, come on, man.
Don't some of the pyramids, aren't there like 3 of the pyramids that line up something with a constellation? I think
that's what they say.
Huh?
I've never been there, but I'll say yes, sure.
Yeah, I think I heard that. I had like 3 pyramids are lined up with some constellation. I mean, the pyramids are how old? 1,000? How old are the pyramids? I don't know. They're old as shit. Point is, if they lined up when they were built, that'd be a weird.
1 second.
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I'll just keep talking on for now. Yeah, I've heard people say that these I think the pyramids in Giza, 3 of them are lined up with a constellation, something like that, of stars in the sky, which, the pyramids are pretty damn old, and to this day, they're still lined up with those stars. So, kind of weird. It does kind of make you wonder about this whole thing about, aren't galaxies, like, I've seen, supposed images, or maybe they're just computer generations of graphics, and I've seen them, and if there are many different galaxies and they look like they're isolated and different, you would think that the fucking constellations and the stars in the night sky wouldn't be so consistently there. Sorry, go ahead.
Also, on the Nikon P900, if you zoom in on the stars or you look at the videos of people who do and the planets, they don't look a damn thing like what we're told they are. Not even close. They do not look like burning, combusting balls of gas. They look like some very strange, multicolored, changing, kind of very symmetrical, almost like, you ever watch fractals? You ever see those? Yeah. Like kind of like that. They look like, just, I don't know how to describe them. They don't look like stars. Not even close. Yeah. And so, if you ever check out time lapses of the sun's motion and the moon's motion, I won't get into all right now, but that's something that you can always investigate if you want. Ooh, this one's interesting. Mm-hmm. The moon has opposite light. It's a negative light. Okay. It means if you go and check out, maybe I can find one on here. Give me a quick moment.
Yeah, I have heard of that before. Supposedly it's temperature is less or something. Moonlight temperature is cooler or some shit like that.
Yeah, just absolutely. I intend myself to go out and get me whatever you call it, the temperature, the thermometer that you can point at something with a little laser, it shows. So this guy is checking it out on his moon. He's out here, and I'll just spare you all the details. He's showing you where he placed everything, and you can see the moon shadow and blah blah blah. So yeah, you go out there, and usually they have like just a metal plate or something. They put the moon shadow right in the middle. It's like 60 degrees. 60 degrees on both sides when they start. Okay, now they put it in the moon shade, and it goes 62. Put it in the moonlight, 58, 63, 55, back and forth, up to 10, 12 degrees difference, depending on how much the moon is showing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, oh, shit, okay, well, wait a minute. And so, of course, the next question that's inevitably going to come up is, well, okay, well, what's going on? And then you think, well, if the moon's light is literally the opposite of the sun, the first thing we have to consider is the moon is not a giant reflector dish floating in the sky that's just picking up the sun's rays and shooting it back at us, because it's the opposite is happening.
Yeah.
And there's no magic math that I know about that's going to take sunlight, hit it against the moon, and have by the time it reaches us, it's cooling us. That just doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah.
So what is much more likely is that the moon is emitting its own independent and specific light. It is just, I mean, I'm sorry, man, just as the Bible describes, two separate lights, a greater light to rule the day and a lesser light to rule the night. They're actual lights in the sky. The Bible refers to as the firmament, right? I haven't been up there, I don't know, but that's what it says, at least that part. And that is surprisingly, and corroborative with what we're showing on the temperature gauges. It's just, unless someone else has a better idea, that's what seems to be the first kind of obvious result, or the obvious kind of explanation for that. There's no other reason why it would be emitting light that has, cooling effect.
Yeah.
So, and then once again, that blows out all the Big Bang nonsense, because Big Bang says that our Earth is reliant upon the sun being there first for who knows how long before we circle around and do all this crap.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, on a flat Earth, all of the stuff in the Bible that seems crazy is a little less crazy, because if you're looking at a flat Earth, we could come up with all kinds of funny theories on how everything was formed. Some people say, well, maybe some elements fell from the sky and maybe it made all this stuff happen, and blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's sort of the same as evolution, but that just doesn't add up as much as some dude putting it there. If there's someone that is operating a machine or operating some kind of lab experiment at an incalculable level, of sophistication, it's not that fucking crazy.
Yeah.
The thing that he claims. Not saying all the way that it's true yet. I'm just saying it's not that crazy.
Yeah.
Satellites. All satellites point south. I don't know if you've ever checked it out before. When driving around, just do it for the next few weeks. Look at every single satellite you can. Every single last one of them points south.
Satellite dish.
Satellite dish, yes.
Okay.
On the ground. So I was watching a video by a guy, I believe he worked for Dish Network, and he was calling up his boss or whatever to find out why on earth everything points south. And their official position that I'm aware of is that here's the Earth. All of the satellites are orbiting in the southern hemisphere. And as a math major in my, when I was a little younger in college, that's some fucking funny ass math to me. I am aware of no math whatsoever that can keep something orbiting at the southern hemisphere. There's no math really that can keep anything orbiting around anything. But if there was math, there certainly isn't any that says that. So
wait, what was the guy's official? What was the official response? That the satellites are orbiting around what?
That they only stay below the equator in the southern hemisphere. Which is already crazy, because if your dish is pointing south, if you're on the equator, you're not even pointing to the southern pole. You're pointing straight down, because it's only line of sight for a satellite. So you're pointing straight down, which means it's insane, man. It's insane. It just doesn't add up. There's not an explanation. There is not a scientific explanation for it. It drives me nuts. So
I'm a little confused on the whole satellite dish is pointing south. So wait a minute. So, all right. So, okay, if it is flat, what do you think they're pointing to? I mean, if it's flat and they're all pointing south
might be bouncing it off the dome somehow in some kind of clumsy way of trying to pull off what Tesla did, perhaps.
Okay. So on a flat Earth model, if they're pointing south, or they're pointing towards the southern hemisphere, or
to the outside of the dish, basically. Outside of the circle, where there's a big dome.
It is interesting.
I don't know.
Yeah, because they do all point the same direction. And why would they point? I guess because the assumption is there's a satellite up there orbiting, and it's always in the same spot or something. So they got to point at the satellite.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Yep.
Arctic and Antarctic summers and winters are very peculiar. You have in the northern hemisphere, you have the sun that's up all 24 hours of the day for 3 straight days. And, if the earth is tilted this way, with the sun over here, it doesn't work out. And then, I mean, you're always going to be at least one part of it. You're going to be obscured by the earth. And it just can't be done. I don't know if you've seen the way the sun moves on a flat earth, but the claim is that it's covering over the equator, which is kind of the central circle. I know I'm probably not going to do this any justice because it's just too hard.
I've seen the little animation. Yeah.
Yeah. So in the summer, it's closer to the circle, and in the winter, it's closer to the outside circle, which perfectly explains why New Zealand has summertime in December, and which has always been kind of a mystery to me. Why would it be such a big difference if they're still on the same Earth, 93 million miles away, and it's just tilted a little bit? Why would their winters and summers be different?
Mm-hmm.
So there's plenty of videos that show how the moon phases work and how it's much more easily substantiated on a flat Earth. I'm just going down my notes here. Sorry. The moon flips upside down. I'm not exactly sure. I want to say it's like on equinox or something, but sorry, there's just so much information. I can't follow it all the time. But I've looked up in the sky, and up in the sky, if you ever notice, I always say there's like a duck in the moon. There's like looks like a duck bill, and then it kind of goes down like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it goes across the sky, at 2 or 3 in the morning, it's upside down for me. And that's really weird too. If they're going to try to say that there's this moon orbiting the Earth, and I want to know what funny ass math they're using to keep the same side of the moon constantly on us.
Yeah, it's
it's
so weird. You know what else is weird? If it is just a big bang of random, physical matter rocks blowing up, I mean exploding, how bizarre that purposeless, meaningless rocks blowing up out of nothing would suddenly organize into these perfectly organized, consistent orbits every year, predictable to the point where we could tune our satellites and our GPS in tune with the. I mean, it's just. I think it violates entropy or one of those laws.
Yeah, we couldn't make watches without a vast knowledge of where those are going to be, in the sky at certain times. That's how.
It's weird, and that's one of the fundamental fundamental belief systems of this heliocentric balls bouncing around pointlessly in the universe is randomness, is a lack of order to things. And yet look at the incredible order everywhere. It really doesn't make what mainstream science, mainstream cosmology admits about our universe almost doesn't jive with the pessimistic religion of depression and nihilism that they spoon feed to us, saying that none of it matters and it's just matter bouncing around pointlessly. Like why would a giant explosion of space rocks out of nothing be so organized in its spinning orbits? Like you said, imagine seeing the exact same fucking side of the moon all the goddamn time. It's pretty bizarre. It doesn't seem to jive.
Mm-hmm. And if people still want to hang on to this heliocentric model, which, by the way, Copernicus alone admitted that it was not based on fact, that it was based on all of these theories that he couldn't prove, and that he was basically just kind of putting it out as a fun kind of mental chewing gum thought experiment. But if you still want to for the people who still want to hold on to the heliocentric model, let's just take on what we can see. Okay, if the Earth is flat, then we're some kind of spinning frisbee in the rest of all this other stuff that we claim to see, which alone is unique and kind of weird. And then, or it's possible that it could go on forever, which also is a little weird. So, like, however you work it out, it's something significant and different, and unique just to us. And I mean, if you try to hold on to this issue of us, I mean, let's just take, if I wanted to go to the Bible, I mean, I only wrote a few little notes here. It's not a lot, but there is not one single mention of a globe or a ball or anything spinning or orbiting or falling or circling or anything like that. Not one. Every single case where the earth or our living quarters are mentioned talks about that, like the sun and the moon were made after the earth, and that they have a specific function that goes around us, or does their thing. There's several mentions of something called the firmament, which would refer to this dome or this encapsulated kind of encasing lab experiment that we might find ourselves in. There's one scripture in Isaiah where it talks about how the earth was stamped, and it uses the comparison of a seal. Like when back in the day when they would seal up envelopes, with the wax. So when you push down the seal, it says it was stamped as if it was a seal. You push it down, and just like a seal, it talks about how the outsides have like a bulge, like a barrier or a border. That's what it's describing, and that's just like what it looks like to us. Especially, I don't know if you ever heard of the Gleason flat Earth map.
Yeah, I think I have. Yeah.
Let's get into that in a second, but I'll continue on with this. So yeah, that's one example, where the Bible talks about how the earth was made. And so you put those together, and you're like, well, try to work that out with a globe. It can't be done. It talks about the corners of the earth, and there's one scripture that talks about, I looked upon the breadth of the earth. And if you actually look up breadth of the earth it's either the Hebrew or the Greek concordance, the actual word that was used that was translated into English was platus, stemming from plateau, a flat plane. Anyway,
let's get into why they would lie, because we've gone over like incredible amounts of evidence, and I think we were alluding to it at the very start of our conversation, and I feel like that's really important, and it's going to be really deep, and it's probably going to be terrifying, but that's a good thing. Why would they lie? What is it? Just NASA's covering their ass and it was a space race, or is it more sinister?
I would say so. Yeah, that'd be my guess. I'll go ahead and start with the hardest one, and we can get into all the secondary ones if we have to. But the core of it is they're trying to hide God from us. They're trying to convince us systematically, generation by generation, that we are insignificant dust out in the middle of nowhere, and we just got to find a way to work it out. And someday our planet's going to run out of resources, and we're just going to have to work out a way of going somewhere else. We're on our own, and it's just us. And there's no old man on the hill for us to consult on how to deal with these issues. That's what we're told, right? That's definitely not the case. And so if you look at like the high altitude footage, and you kind of sit back and you say, okay, if this is flat, and the only way you can really work it out is it should have been placed here at one point, right? I mean, it's here now, so it was put here by something. It's very unlikely that it was done by some kind of crazy, just random stuff that kind of landed on each other. And even if it was, where did the random stuff come from? So when you realize that, it's a very sobering feeling, because you're like, how do I describe it? I'm being watched, kind of. Not exactly in that sense, but there is a very specific purpose to my life and to my thoughts, and to my actions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, this is going to be sort of a sidestep, but okay. I always like to tell people, consider yourself like a programmer. You ever done programming before?
No.
Okay, I've done just basic fun stuff, on the computer, where you have to like put together this model and things have to work out just right. And if there's one thing that you don't do just right, the whole thing just gets all screwy. You know what I mean? So if you consider God as a programmer, and he programmed the baddest ass game in the whole universe, it's called life. He made this awesome just place. And again, I'm not being biblical here. I'm just trying to kind of explain how I tell it to other people. Then just like the Bible says, it would appear to us just like you were downloading something, like you were punching in code, bam, all the trees show up, punching in code, bam, all the animals show up. You know what I mean? Because it's not crazy world anymore. If you're on some kind of weird platform, like if you're on some video game, like we're all basically like Marios in a Super Mario world, except we're the one video game where we were handed the controller and say, you get to move Mario around wherever you want, and if you'll grant me the time, so let me try to find a way of working around this quickly. So God is like,
We got
he
all the
made this,
time. We got all the time in the world, so don't worry about it.
wait. So God made this game, let's say, and you make this character, and again, we're talking about a game that is so sophisticated. I mean, we're talking about the world and life, where there's no way we're ever going to even come close to figuring out how this place runs. Never even close. No matter how much AI they sync up together and try to gather all the information in the world, if you sat down and pondered the life and the purpose of a red blood cell, you would be sitting in utter amazement and pontification for months. Like just one single cell. And what it does and how it goes around the body and its whole purpose. And I mean, even blood itself is a whole other fascinating topic, which I'll get into later if we can. But so God made this badass game, and he made this character called Adam, and he says, look at me, Adam. I'm going to put you in this game called life, and it's badass, man. It's crazy down there. There's all kinds of tight shit that happens. He's like, don't push this fucking button, man. It's like the button on your computer screen that unleashes the virus, because God had to make this world perfect, and you got to take all that bad shit, just like everything else in life. We all have input and we all have exhaust. If you think of a car or anything else, right? Everything has input, output. So you have this wonderful world that's perfect, and God had to he had to encapsulate and keep tight all of that terrible shit in this thing that we call the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which would be a button on your desktop that you're not supposed to push, right? And so Adam, of course, is walking around the world. He thinks it's tight, everything's going great. Eats the apple. Virus now is invaded the entire computer system. No way out of it. The whole game's fucked. The umbilical cord between the programmer and the program is now cut, and now we're stuck here. Now, the good news is God had like a fuse in the tree. He had a whole system worked out, and that's all outlined and spelled out in the rest of the Bible. But I just want you to consider thinking of God as a programmer, because I don't buy into the whole like Elon Musk simulated universe stuff. I haven't really looked into it, but I mean, I'm not taking anything from Elon Musk because he's a total corporate hack globalist. Yada, yada, yada. But what they're bringing up is talking about when I was watching the Feynman lectures, Richard Feynman, he did break down a few things that said if he had to describe what the nature of the universe would be, is that it would be some kind of incalculable machine that is just doing all of its business with the data that's out there and can hold it all together, which if we had to have one person to describe who that would be, it would have to be the word God. And so God programmed Adam, or I'm using the word program just because I'm talking computer code, but whatever you want to insert for, the actual word is fine. But and God says to Adam, don't touch this button. Adam touches the button. So now you have this issue of the whole world being screwed. And I'm sure everyone at this point, at one point in their life, figures out that the whole world's jacked up. Something ain't functioning right. It is not computing the way it's supposed to be. And so the whole Bible talks about all these things about, God now is like, he finds Moses and he's like, look, man, I can't explain this shit right now. Look, Adam fucked this all up and it's spinning out of control, and do this, and this, right? And so Moses is like, okay, he's writing it down. And he's like, okay, shit. Okay, he puts it all down, and everyone's doing that for a while, and the whole time it's just part of a computer program. It's God's just making it work. And so the whole reason I'm telling you this is because a flat earth makes it a lot more palatable to think of life functioning this way, because now we have a book of instructions, or not now, but we've always had a book of instructions which kind of lays this out, not exactly in the same way I did, but if it was a globe earth and we were just random speck of dust in the middle of nowhere, it's very easy to discard all that stuff, because you can rely on all this other science, that's saying, well, that's just, fairy tale land. But if you think of it, if you think of God like a programmer, and how would you do it? So if you were a programmer and now your game has this fucked up virus in it and you can't retrieve any of your characters, right? Every time you try to get a character out, it just says invalid file. So God said, well, I'm the only person who knows the code. I got to go in that game. I got to put myself in that game, and my blood is the only blood that will account for all of the contingencies of sin everywhere else. It will take care of the virus. It doesn't particularly get you out. It just means that you can recognize the file now. And I could go into a whole.
So wait, so you're suggesting basically that's what Christ was? That was God entering into the system?
Yes, that was God incarnate but I mean, he's referred to as God's son because you have to be born in order to be in the game. You know what I mean? So you have a mother and a father. And there's this other guy named Ron Wyatt, which I'm going to, a little bit off topic, but I'm going to find it here for you so that we can see.
Well, that would kind of explain why.
What's what?
That would kind of explain why Jesus supposedly, you know, was born of a virgin birth. Because if anyone's going to break the chain of causality, i.e., needing a man and a woman to come together to create life, if anyone's going to break the chain of causality and be born of a virgin birth, it would be the God who is above the chain of causality to begin with.
There you go. The guy who's writing the code, the guy who can change it. Jesus did that too. When Jesus was here, you know, he was like, look, man, he's like, check it out. I'm God. You know, like, look at this shit I can do. You know, I'm fucking with the program.
Exactly.
You gotta listen to me, man. I'm the only way out of this fucked up game.
Exactly. If anybody could break the rules, it's the guy who programmed the damn thing.
Yeah. So this guy right here, let me find it for you. This guy's name is Ron Wyatt, and I'll just kind of give you the gist because it's a long video. But he back in the day, he's the guy who claims he found Noah's Ark and has video of all that stuff. And he went down and dug under where the site is and found like animal feces and other planks of wood and stuff like that. He also claimed to find the Ark of the Covenant that had some dried blood on it. And he scraped up the blood, took it to a Jewish lab there in Jerusalem and said, tell me what you can about this. And they said, okay. He's like, but I want to be there, you know, when you're doing all this. And they said, okay, well, here's what we can tell. It's human blood. We know that at least so far. And something very unusual. You can't get a chromosome count from dried blood. It has to be living blood. But they said, we could get a chromosome count from this. And he's like, okay, what's that? And it only had 24 chromosomes in it. And again, this is me, you know, relaying what I heard. Mm-hmm. So, 23 normally we have 46. He had 23 from Mary's side, his mother, and there was one single Y chromosome on the other side. There's supposed to be 23. There was one. And so these lab technicians were pretty baffled. They're like, what in the hell's going on here? And so he said, well, do me a favor, stick it in. I think they call it a culture. Stick it in the culture, and it's like swishes around for 72 hours or something, and it's supposed to grow things or whatnot if it's living blood. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but whatever it was, it comes back 72 hours later, and sure enough, it was doing all the shit that living blood was supposed to do. And so the technicians are like, you know, who in the hell, where did you find this? Whose blood is this? And he said, that's the blood of your Messiah. That's the living blood right there in front of you that's regrowing stuff. Now, it could be sensationalism, I don't know, but it would make a hell of a lot of sense when you consider how important blood is in the world. And blood is something that we don't really talk about a lot, especially not in school, you know, because it's kind of icky and it has all the, you know, you have to, what do you call it? When you talk about blood, you have to really sort of face your own mortality. Because blood, I mean, if you're losing blood, you'll know about it right away. It will become a high priority for you. Mm-hmm. And blood is the force that powers all life. And so it would just, when I read the Bible before when I was younger, I just thought when they were talking about, you know, like the blood of our Savior, I just thought it was kind of like, you know, ornamentation, you know, and sort of like Shakespearean kind of making it sound nice. But no, they're actually literally talking about the actual blood, the actual literal liquid, you know, and that literally that blood is what changed the whole video game. That blood is what God was able to pump himself into the game, said, I'm the only one who knows the code. I'm the only one that I trust with it. So I'm going to go in there myself. I'm going to handle my business. And then, you know, for those who know the rest of the story, it kind of goes on from there.
Yeah. Huh. Very interesting.
For me was I saw all of this happening, and I saw the earth, you know, from way up high. And I'm just like, now all the fairy tale crazy shit is not that insane. Just because it's not because I like it better, but because I like it worse that I'm on a flat earth. Like now that I know that's weird enough alone as it is, then all the other stuff is more, you know, I guess you'd say more interesting to me, more just makes more sense.
Yeah.
All the rest of the stuff that you get that we're being fed is just bullshit. It's just shit to get us to work harder until we die, if you want to break it down like that.
That's insane.
Think of this way. If you were a programmer and you had to deal with all these Mario characters in a video game that were thinking for themselves, making their own motions, their own movements. And you had to find some way of convincing them to kind of know who you are and to know what you're doing. But you can't have the virus invade again. You can't have Satan come in and screw it all up. The only way you would pull it off is with how do I describe this? The only way I could get them to really do that would be through faith. Would be to, like, you can't give humans instructions of things to obey and to follow, because we won't fulfill it. We always fall. We break down, even if it's simple stuff. Ultimately, you'll just not do something right. And so, how could you bridge that gap where, you know, the virus can't? I'm doing a terrible job sort of getting this across, and I'm sorry for that. There was times when I had it a little more organized in my mind, but you have to kind of trick Satan. You have to get him to not trick him, but you have to when you're making a decision on your own free will to take a path. Satan doesn't have the ability to kind of take a hit in the short term for the long con. His programming doesn't work that way. Satan's all about destruction. He's all about greed right now, immediate kind of stuff. So if you can get the character to suspend that reaction for a second and just consider what's going on, and even though you don't have everything you need, still say, I'm convinced, still say, I know who you were and what you did. That's when your file becomes recognizable, where God can retrieve you. That's what's really happening. He's not trying to get anyone to be perfect or to get anyone to, be a righteous person. Though, of course, that would be preferred. But the purpose is to make sure that you know who he is and he knows who you are. That's why it says in the Bible, I do this in remembrance of me, because it's all about memory. As the generations go down, facts fade into the history books because of memory. What else was I going to mention? Dang it, it was a good one. I forgot I had it in my mind as I was talking, but anyway, I'm talking too much. What are your thoughts?
Crazy shit, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is really cool though. I like going deep, even if it's like something I've never heard or I'm not used to. Yeah, the whole Christianity thing is super interesting. I definitely have a sort of bias against it because, again, like I told you at the start, like I've basically my kind of default view in religion is that they've all been debunked and none of them are valid. So I haven't even bothered really looking into any of the religions for many years now. But
think of yourself, you're trapped in a life, almost in a lab experiment, and it'll change it. Because it sure as hell is what it looks like to me.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, it's good. I'm just processing this conversation.
Yeah.
Sometimes I go.
It's really about realizing where we are.
Huh?
It's really about realizing where we are, and especially if you come to the sobering determination that we're a hell of a lot younger and smaller than we think we are. At least high likelihood of that would be my guess.
It's crazy because that's basically what the mainstream science pushes. It's funny how they're polar opposites. Either we're younger, everything's closer, everything is smaller, everything is more centered, or everything is further, everything is older, everything is more distant. And yeah, the mainstream cosmology is very disempowering. It's like everything is so big, everything is so far away, everything is so out of your control. There's no control. It's all chance, all coincidence. There's no purpose. There's no intention. There's none of that. It's just a big accident. You're flying around through space with no fucking control. It's almost like they're opposite extremes. And I wonder why they're so extreme. Is it because religious, faith-based people just want to cling to something that makes them feel special and cared for by a cosmic creator? Or is it a bunch of depressed nihilists who just want to say, fuck all that shit, nothing matters, and, feel like crap and feel terrible and feel alone and all this stuff? It's kind of like a good versus evil. It's a God versus Satan, a good versus evil. It's interesting how it's polar opposite views of our world,
and the deliberate intent to confuse. Now even mainstream science is saying once again that the Earth is the center of the universe.
I've heard about that.
About how the Earth is the center of the universe again. So our wonderful science is so inconsistent and vague. I don't know. the more I think about it, I mean, if you're not in the Bible, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your life. It's and I'm not thrilled about saying that, man. I went many years, decades of my life, vehemently against the Bible. I can't tell you, if you haven't read it, it is quite frankly the most transformational book on the planet. No doubt about it. No doubt. And I would never imagine I would have said that.
Did you have to read it? Did it only have that impact when you were open-minded to the flat Earth stuff? Because I have looked at it before, but it's never really done anything for me. But I wonder if maybe if you're like, oh shit, the Earth might be flat, there might be a creator, then it has a more powerful impact. Was it the flat Earth thing that kind of helped make it impactful for you?
It certainly was a big hit. It put me in my place pretty quickly.
Okay.
You know what I mean? At first, I sort of had in mind kind of like, we humans are smart. We're going to figure it out soon. You know, we're going to figure out someday just how to make everything work out really nicely. You know, not a chance. We are clumsy, just arrogant, prideful, just morons. You know, and it's literally not until you humble yourself until you are exalted, or in which you can become exalted. And it sucks because I don't like humbling myself. It is a very uncomfortable feeling. You know, it is for most people. But that's, if I were the programmer and I knew that the whole world was screwed up and stuck in a virus, the only people that I would want back up here with me, because remember, up here it's perfect. Y'all don't get to touch me up here. You know, and it says that. It says the umbilical cord's cut off. It doesn't get reconnected unless you use the magic word. And I don't mean that with disrespect. I'm just saying it's a half-assed joke. But if you had to do that, and like, oh man, what was I going? I'm so sorry, I forgot about it.
If you were the programmer.
Yeah.
If you were the programmer.
If I was the programmer and I knew that I had to kind of circumvent Satan's influence, it would be with the humble. It would be with the people who, upon their immediate thought is to, you know, humble themselves, or to not, what would you say? It's the original sin. You know, Adam and Eve wanted to be like God. You know, they wanted to be as smart as God. So that's what I would do if I were running the show. And it says that we do what God does. It says we're in His image. We think like Him. We would generally do the same things He would do it in a kind of screwed up, clumsy way. But picked to come up here with me, I was like, y'all get to come back up are the ones who are humble, the ones who when someone's ridiculing you, when someone's attacking you, you're the one that just for a moment, you know, you kind of separate yourself and you work out the details and you get to the bottom of stuff before you react, which is why it was so, you know, one of the main reasons why Jesus was so clear. If you get slapped, you got to turn the other cheek. God's up there watching saying, I want to find the crazy people who know I'm up here, you know, who know so well. They're the crazy sons of bitches that are going to do all this stuff that no one in their right mind would ever do. You know, that's the proof. That's how they're showing me that they know that I was there, that I was doing the stuff, that I'm the one running this joint. Here's all the information you need. The Earth's flat. Sorry, give me 1 second here.
My Lord. Oh my Lord, this is crazy shit. Yeah, man. I think we've gone long enough for today. Pretty far down the rabbit hole here today. Definitely a lot to think about, but it was definitely a great conversation. Honestly, you know, once I process all of this and I think about it, I think there's probably a few hours more conversation we could probably pull off at another date. Because it seems to go pretty deep. But yeah, any last words? Maybe you want to plug your website again, or just let anybody else know anything else?
Yeah. Well, just to make sure everyone's clear, all glory to God in the name of Jesus. And I appreciate the time that I get to spend with you and your platform, because I really like your show. And my website is challengetheflatearth.com. And if you want to go on there, or if anyone wants to go on there and make an easy $1,000, then show me the curve.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you all for watching. Leave your comments below. And all right, man. Let me just click off record here.